The United States, the European Union, and France have all condemned the violence targeting civilians, and they're calling for that ceasefire to be restored. We can now go across to France 24's correspondent Noga Tarnopolsky standing by in Jerusalem. Noga, how are Israeli authorities justifying these strikes in Syria, given that Israel itself was not attacked?
That's right, Delano. Israel has not been attacked, but people very close to Israelis have been attacked. We can say that. Israel has a substantial and very prominent Druze minority, very influential, most of whom have close blood relatives across the border. So for these Israeli citizens who are Druze, the increasing evidence of an absolute massacre, including home incinerations, rapes, executions that have taken place in the last 3 days have hit very hard, and they, as Israeli citizens, are demanding that the Israeli army act to protect their own brethren. That is one part of this. The other part of this is that Israel made a public announcement, a public commitment, the minute that the Assad regime failed and fell 7 months ago, that it would not allow enemy forces on its border. This follows years of having Iranian top officials and Russian forces on this Syrian-Israeli border that basically were forces propping up the Assad regime in its last few years. So Israel took the opportunity of the fall of that regime to step in, and it's now acting both to protect the Druze and to make sure, as it says, that no enemy forces or threatening forces are on the border.
Now, Noga, stay with us, because earlier today we had Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who warned members of Israel's Druze minority not to cross the border to neighboring Syria. It comes after reports that members of the community had been trying to cross. This as dozens of suspects, according to Israel's army, has attempted to infiltrate Israeli territory from the Syrian border, and the IDF says they were working to prevent those crossings. Take a listen to Netanyahu speaking earlier.
My fellow Israeli Druze citizens, the situation in Sweda, the situation in southern Syria is very serious. The IDF is operating, the Air Force is operating, other forces are operating. We are working to save the Druze community and to eliminate the terrorist threats. And now I have one request of you. You are citizens of Israel. Do not cross the border. You are putting yourselves in danger. You could be killed, you could be kidnapped, and you are harming the IDF's efforts. Therefore, I ask you to return to your homes and let the IDF do its job.
Noga, what are we hearing about what exactly is happening on the border? Are Israeli Druze entering Syria?
Israeli Druze have entered Syria in droves. There are at least 1,000 Israeli citizens right now in all parts of Syria. No one knows exactly where they are. People have family members, as I said, across the border. Some made connections via WhatsApp or Signal, and cars came to pick them up as they crossed the border. The Israeli army was completely unprepared for today's event, despite days of warning. There have been at least 3 days that the Druze leadership inside Israel, including very prominent legislators, former legislators, top military officials, were demanding that the Israeli army act in Syria, feeling that they were not being heard by the political echelons in Israel, and warning that they themselves would cross and risk their lives to save their fellow Druze if Israel didn't act. So this is an event absolutely known ahead of time. The Israeli army just let them through, and there are people going in the opposite direction. Residents of the town of El Khadr, another Druze town in the general area of Al Suwaida, have been crossing into Israel. In part, this is for family reunification. People haven't seen each other, close family members haven't seen each other in years, and in part, people trying to escape what is happening, the violence taking place in Syria. Incredibly, Delano, Israel has sent police officers, not army, into Syria to try and impose Israeli law on Syrian territory by corralling these citizens who have infiltrated into Syria and bring them home. clearly, as we heard the Prime Minister say, there's a concern in Israel that they could find themselves again in a situation with hostages, Israeli citizens taken hostage or murdered in Syrian hands.
Noga, this is clearly a developing situation, but it comes, given the context of what is going on around where you are. We have a conflict that continues in Gaza. There's no ceasefire there. Israeli hostages remain there. The 12-day war with Iran just ended a month ago. Does anyone have an appetite for a new front opening up with Syria now?
I don't think there's an appetite for new front, but obviously there's always a social and political context for these things. So I will mention to you that in addition to the very real considerations that we've been discussing until now, the Israeli Prime Minister had been able, who is on trial for corruption, had been able to cancel his testimony at trial for basically a month because of the Iran conflict. Today, he had to provide testimony, and it was aborted because of the Syria development. So, again, his trial is being canceled. It appears the Prime Minister is trying to push back any of these sessions until the summer judicial recess in 2 weeks. And this issue is providing him with an ability to do so. And in addition, while Israelis in general don't want war, there is enormous identification here with the Druze, and there is a general feeling of urgency to save these Druze relatives and connections of Druze citizens of Israel. That does have support.
Noga, thank you very much for that, Noga Tarnopolsky.